Hey guys, today I'm going to walk you through my process of analyzing real estate investment deals so you can kind of see the process that I use. I analyze properties a lot, and this is going to be kind of a basic overview, the first step to analyzing a deal, whether you think it's good or not, to determine whether you want to keep moving forward in the deal. You need to go through these basic steps. You need to know what you're looking at. You need to know what you're looking for. You need to know how to analyze these deals so that you can uh, make good investments. If you don't know how to analyze a deal, it's kind of pointless because you're going to end up with a bad deal. So it's not that complicated. It's kind of detailed, but it's not all that complicated. And so I'm going to just kind of walk you through here how I sort of initially go through weeding out all the properties that are available. And I'm going to use just this one example so you can kind of see what my process is, so that hopefully you can find something useful in here. So when you do your own analysis, you know what questions to ask, how to analyze, and how to really dig into these numbers, see where they're being distorted, where they're being truthful, where they're trying to put on a front and make the property look better than it actually is, which is a very common thing. Pretty much every one of these that I look at, there are elements of that. They're marketing, not necessarily accuracy, especially when they do the projections and the pro formas and things like that. So let's get right into it here. So this property is in Omaha, Nebraska. It's a 12-unit apartment building listed for sale for $1,056,000, which comes out to $88,000 a unit. So not too bad. $88,000 is pretty decent. You know, we'll see as we get into it. But initially, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, that's pretty reasonable. So I'm gonna go down here. We'll look at the pictures of it, and it's obviously a pretty old building, probably built like in the late '60s or something. It's got this ugly ass rock on it. It's also got a house right next door to it. See that? So this is probably an older area as well. And this house is pretty old. The house next to it is pretty old. You know, the house being right up next to it kind of, makes it look really cluttered and not very good. So this is probably is going to be a lower income area. You can tell just by the age of the buildings. Old areas like this and houses like this generally are lower income areas, which it's not good or bad or whatever, just a data point to keep in mind. It looks to me like, well, maybe we'll see this in some of the other pictures, but it looks to me like they used to have through the wall AC units that have been removed. I got some concrete here. This is probably a parking lot or something. It's got some cracks. Doesn't look like it's in all that bad a condition. Let's keep looking here. Some mulch here. Glass entryway door. Yeah, looks like something's going on with these. We'll come across whatever that is. It looks pretty much like those were through the wall air conditioners. So I'm kind of curious what in the world they got going on there. Okay, let's look over here at this picture. Looks like maybe they've got some high-speed internet that's been installed. They've got these railroad ties here that are kind of rough looking. Looks like they are starting to fall down. So you probably have to do some landscaping at some point, and there's probably snakes and things living in there. Some more cracks in the concrete. Again, this is an older building, so you kind of expect some of these things. It's going to be a project. Okay, entryway. Not much to note there. Okay, well, this looks really nice. This is the entryway into the apartment, the hallway, basically, and the stairs. Looks like they've renovated it. Looks like it's in pretty good condition. Nice laminate vinyl plank flooring here. Nice neutral tones, modern colors, black and grayish brown. It's got some new mailboxes here. Looks like they just painted the stairs black and put some nice rubber coating on it. So that's nice. That's good. That's good. So you wouldn't really have to do much there. This going into the apartment. Now you never quite know if all the apartments look like, how many of the apartments look like this. Of course, they're going to show you the best one when you're, when they're showing it to you, because they want it to appear as if it's better than what it really is. So keep that in mind. But this looks nice. Looks like they did a pretty good job. Has the original entry door on it. They painted it black. They got some gray neutral color palette, which is good, nice and modern. Looks like they cut a hole in the wall here. I bet they must have opened this up or something, because that's a nice big opening. Really opens up the apartment. It looks like they just painted the original cabinets here, painted them white, so they're probably not new. These bottom ones look newer, so these might have been replaced. It's got a new countertop. Looks like a new sink, a new faucet, brand new appliances. Good. Yeah, very nice. Maybe a little pantry or something here. Okay, so yeah, look at this. They've got heat ducts in here. So I wonder if this used to be like a electric baseboard heat, or baseboard heat maybe, or a boiler heat and air through the wall air conditioners or something, and they retrofitted it, because this looks like it's been added to me. So we'll have to keep our eye out for that and see. Okay, we got original bathroom. Still got the pink tub and the 4x4 square tiles on the walls. It looks, you can always tell, they always look junky with the caulking around the tubs. You see it's kind of real thick and kind of globby on there. That always looks nasty. This is the original sink, original countertop and cabinet, original medicine cabinet, with the original light probably up above it. Vent fan, they got a window in the shower. So, so that it hasn't been completely renovated. Okay, living room, bedroom, decent size, not much to see in bedrooms. Okay, laundry room. They got a coin op, both washer and dryer. Doesn't look like they've really done anything in here to make it look clean and nice. Some painting would have gone a long ways. Okay, so there's that ugly rock on the outside. Okay, here's like an aerial view, just an older area, another apartment complex over there, another one over there. Oh yeah, this is the parking lot. All right. Okay, looks like this maybe is the downtown. Lots of houses, 2 houses tucked in right here between these apartment buildings. So, it's a lower income, lower priced area. So we can't get probably real optimistic about the rents. So, okay, well, let's read the summary here. I don't really spend too much time on this, but sometimes it can give you some insight. I usually will look at it later, but let's just go ahead and read it right now. Okay, Ronnie Lee Apartments presents a turnkey, low-maintenance, 12-unit multifamily opportunity in a high-demand rental corridor of South Omaha. This 100% one-bedroom, one-bathroom building has undergone key capital improvements, including a new roof and HVAC system upgrade in 2022, replacing the original boiler system, reducing operating costs and increasing tenant comfort. Well, that is a really big upgrade. That was probably super expensive. They must have put a furnace, and I didn't see any AC units sitting on the ground. So how was, let me just check here. I want to see in between the buildings. Okay. I got a bunch of AC units over here. I can't really see. Nothing on the roof. They must all be along this side of the building or something. Or it's one system that controls it for the whole building or something like that. And each one, I don't know, has a each unit maybe can control their own temperature, but it just has a single unit for the whole building. I'm not sure. That's something I would want to know a lot more about, but that sounds like a really expensive upgrade. So that's a good thing. And a new roof, that's really good. That's an expensive upgrade. This asset offers strong in-place cash flow with upside potential through interior cosmetic updates with rent increases. So they didn't tell us how many units have been upgraded, have been updated, how many are left. We'll probably be able to tell when we look at the rent roll, though. So let's see, what do we have here? Okay, we've got 1.56, whoops, sorry about that. $1,056,000 is the price. Type C, class type C. Gross rent multiplier, 9.61. So there's a lot of these metrics that are really handy that are just a real quick way to kind of see what kind of investment we got going here. So this would be basically if you take the gross, if you divide the purchase price or the asking price by this. So let's just do it here real quick. We divide that by 9.61. That should give us the gross rent for the year. So about $110,000 of gross rent. That's before expenses and mortgage payment and all that kind of stuff. So, like a lot of times, you know, if you can, let's say the 1% rule, right, for single family homes, if you can make $1,000 a month rent, then the price of the house will be about $100,000. So this is about 10. So then, this is 110, you know, so if it was a 10 multiplier, it'd be 1.9 or 1,090,000. So anyway, there's just some little numbers like that. So this doesn't really tell us much. Okay, so the gross rent is $110,000. Big deal. So what does that mean? Let's keep looking here. Multifamily, low rise, occupancy 92%. None of this is really all that useful. Built in 1965. Okay, so yeah, that's about what I was guessing. But anyway, let's get into the real nitty gritty here. We're going to download and just open up this attachment right here. This is going to give us all the financials and stuff. This is the operating memorandum. So this is where they're going to lie to us. And they're going to tell us this is way better of a deal than it probably is. And that's kind of the skepticism I go into all these things with, because I've read so many of them. I know that these are basically marketing. These are marketing tools. These are not financial documents. So it's basically the agent or the agency telling you how good they think it could be for you. So let's take a look here. So 12 units. Net operating income, so that's after expenses, is 40,000. That doesn't include the mortgage. They are projecting it could be 81,000, of course, double. But my question is always, well, why isn't the owner doing that then? If they could make twice as much money, they don't want to make twice as much money. Well, it's probably because it comes with a couple of things. either that's a ridiculous inflation of what the rents can be, you've had lazy, terrible management, or they don't want to spend the money on the upgrades to get the rents to be that. So with the 40,000 of current net operating income, it puts our cap rate at 3.83, which is pretty shitty, pretty bad. You don't really want to entertain things that are that low of a cap rate unless this is like a brand new, the most amazing brand new multifamily you've seen. This is for properties that are high level class A luxury, nice that you don't have to do anything to. So the way that cap rate works here, let me just make sure I always screw this up. So okay, yeah. So when you sorry. Come on, 0. Okay, yeah, so the cap rate is calculated by taking the asking price, dividing the net operating income right here. This is their current net operating income by what they're asking. So that gives you a ratio. So that ratio is 3.83%. So essentially what that means is that $40,000 is 3.8% of 1,056,000. Okay, so if you let's just figure that was 10%, right? So that this number is 100,000 basically. That would mean that if you could take all your net operating income, it would take you 10 years. If it was 100,000, it'd take you 10 years to pay for the property. And that's a pretty good ratio. Those deals, those are really, really great deals if you can find something like that. So at 3.83, basically it's telling you it would take 30 years of all of your net operating income to pay for the property, which is way too high. 25 years. So, and this net operating income does not include a mortgage payment, mind you. So they project that it could make double, and it could make 81,000. So at this purchase price, that raises the cap rate all the way up to 7.71. So it doubles the cap rate. Okay. So another way we could do this is we could take 1,056,000. We could divide that by, let's just use their current operating. So the asking price is 26 times what their net operating income is. And that's just, I got to tell you, that's not a good number, not at all. You want that to be like 10. So their bread and butter here, what they're banking on is that somebody's going to go in here and see this double the amount, this 81,000, and they're going to go, whoa, holy cow, that's a great deal. It won't take that much work for me to get it up to that. I just need to raise some rents and paint some walls. That's what they're trying to present this as a great deal because of what the potential is. So if we take the 1,056,000 asking price and we divide that by their pro forma, what they think you can get for net operating income, that gives us 13. So it's 13 times, the asking price is this number times 13. So essentially it would take 13 years to pay it off, which we're getting closer to it being a decent deal at that rate. I'd like those to be the rents currently, because it's still going to have to put a bunch of money into this thing. Still going to have to get the units up to modern standards. Still going to have to do some concrete work, probably some landscaping work. There's still work to be done here. So a lot of this net operating income is actually going to be consumed by maintenance and improvements, at least for the first year or two, because this is an older property. So anyway, this 7.71 is a pretty decent cap rate. Essentially, what that means is if you took all of your net operating income, so if cap rate is around 8%, if you took all of the net operating income, it would pay for the mortgage and you would break even, essentially. So that's what we're looking at here, even with the best case scenario, probably. And we'll do a mortgage calculator. Well, actually, let's just do that right now. Let's see. So I got $1,056,000 for our. I always want the property to pay for itself. 100% financed. The property needs to pay for itself. I'm not putting any money into it, and I'm not putting any ongoing money into it. It has to be self-sustaining. So if we can do that, loan term of 25 years, using an interest rate of 7%. Let's see what we got. Okay, so our monthly payment is $7,400. $7,464, let's say. So what is that annually? $89,000. And look, even our best case scenario, it's only going to be bringing in 81,000. And these numbers are overinflated because these are the marketing numbers. So you're going to have higher expenses than what they're projecting. You're going to have lower rent than they're projecting. You're going to have a higher vacancy than what they're projecting. So this is probably going to be closer to like 60, 65. So even at their wildest projection, that's their marketing numbers, you still fall short by $8,000 a year. So essentially, you'd be paying every month to own this, is the way I look at it. All right. So if you put money down or you 1031 or do something like that, obviously your mortgage is going to be lower. But this kind of makes it apples to apples across the board when you're looking at any deal. Just assume full price and what would it cost to buy it and own it at full price, and does it sustain itself? And then that kind of gives you a number to start with so that you can figure out kind of how to work backwards to a reasonable price and to see if this thing's overpriced or not. All right, so let's get into some more of these numbers. Okay, so let's see what we got going on here. Application fee, pet fee. So they have pets. Forced air updated. Utilities, electric, tenants responsible, RUBS, gas, water, sewer. So they have a ratio utility billing system. So what that means is that the gas, water, and sewer are all just one bill that goes to the owner. And the owner then bills it back to the tenants. So you can do that in a couple of ways. There are organizations that do that, services you can hire to do that. And they essentially will take, they take your common areas out of that and you still have to pay for that. So let's say that's 10% of the bill is the common area. And then they'll take the 90% and they'll divide it by the square footage of your apartment. And then that'll be what your bill is. So, if it's $12,000 a year and there's 12 apartments, then everybody pays $1,000 a year. So they're paying, $80 a month or whatever. I think I did that right. So that's something to keep in mind when we're looking at the financials. We'll want to know about this RUBS and what they're bringing in and what our expenses are on gas, water, sewer, and see if they're getting it all back. All right, floor plan, pretty decent, decent sized rooms. They're nice, pretty nice. Walk-in closet in the bedroom, that's nice. Okay, we already looked at the pictures here. Okay, here we go. Now we're getting into some of the useful stuff. All right. So let's take a look at this. So unit number 1 is tiny. It's only 400 square feet. That must be where the laundry room, they cut room out of that for the laundry probably. But the current rent is $900, and they think they can get $975, the same as for a bigger apartment. Maybe, yeah, maybe one bedrooms are just that much in demand, and the size doesn't matter all that much. So let's look at their current rents. So these must be the renovated ones, is what I'm guessing. Or maybe a lot of these are, and this one's probably not, because it's so much lower. And these vacant ones maybe are not, would be my first, what I would think at first. $1,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment in an old building like that seems like a pretty good amount. So I'm guessing they're probably nicer. So currently they're this month $8,350 collected. The market rent, or the projection, the marketing rent, they're claiming you could get $11,840 if everything was full. So, I mean, it doesn't seem far off. If they're already getting this high of rates, probably could get a little bit higher. Now, you're probably getting, in order to get these apartments up to standard, to the one that we saw, you're probably going to put in $15,000 to $20,000. And so let's say you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of those. You got $80,000 right there, and you're going to have to probably cash flow that in some way, unless you get probably would have to just pay for that in cash, unless you get another loan. But we've already seen this thing's going to be pretty tough to finance. All right. So now we're getting into the real nitty gritty here. So let's take a look at their rent. Gross scheduled rent, $95,000. So CAM, this is common area maintenance. So this would be like cleaning the common areas and the washers and dryers, the electricity, I guess, for the common areas, for the washing machines, all that kind of stuff. So they bill that apparently out to the tenants as well. And this is the RUBS, the ratio utility billing for the utilities like water, sewer, gas, $9,600. So they're saying you could get another $1,200 for that somehow. Probably if you're full, if you have more. I don't know why you would be getting more than what you're already getting. But this common area maintenance, they doubled that as well. So that would be something I would want to look into. What's going on with them that they think they can increase that amount? And maintenance income, I'm not really sure what they mean by maintenance income. Why are you making income on maintenance? Maybe it's people paying you to fix things they broke or something like that. So that's another thing I would want to ask probably the agent for more clarity on. So right now, $109,000 of gross income. They're claiming you could make $148,000 and decrease your expenses. Right? Wouldn't that be nice if that's the way the world worked? Oh yeah, sure. It's just so easy to decrease your expenses while increasing your income by $40,000. That's going to take years, if at all. And these expenses are not going to be this, because you're going to have tons of capital expenses getting it up to that. All right. So here's their expense report. Let's take a look at what they've all got here. Real estate taxes. This usually has it here. Okay, so this property is assessed at $564,000. So this is something that they always do. Okay, so right now they're paying on their $500,000 valuation assessment by the county, they're paying $9,000 in real estate tax. Well, it's not going to stay that way, because if you purchased this thing and it goes to the county assessor, it's going to be flagged, and this will increase eventually. It might not be the first year, it might not be the second year, but it will. If this thing sells for $1 million, they're not going to leave it half the assessed value. So this could potentially double as an expense. That's almost $10,000. So that's a huge, huge expense. So you want to factor that in when you're trying to project out what this property could potentially do. Insurance, they have the same. This is their current insurance. I would be interested to see what the amount is they're insuring it for. If they're insuring it for $500,000, then that price is actually going to increase when you take over. So these are the things you have to pay attention to, guys, because they're not going to do this work for you. They're going to try to keep the expenses as low as possible and try to jack up the income as far as possible to make it look like a better deal for you. Okay? So don't let them fool you. You've got to be diligent on this. Okay, management fee, whatever that is. That's about, I'm not sure how they're paying their management fee, if they have a management company or if they just pay a person part-time to take care of it. If it's a management company and they are charging around 10% of gross rent, then that number is going to increase as well as you increase the rents. So that could go up by about $4,000 or $5,000. Yeah, because 148, right? Yeah, 148. So it could go up by, maybe $4,000. Marketing, okay, they actually increased the marketing. That's an easy one to do because it's an insignificant amount. Repairs and maintenance plus common area maintenance. Okay, 24,000, so $2,000 a month, and they think that it's going to go down for some reason. I don't know why it would go down, because this is probably, there's no way that's including renovations and stuff like that. So they didn't include the capital expenses, which it's common. Nobody does that, and that's a standard practice because you might choose to spend, different capital expenses. But this is ongoing maintenance: snow removal, lawn care, move outs, move ins, cleaning the common areas, cleaning the laundry rooms, all that kind of stuff. $2,000 a month. That's probably about right. Utilities, okay. 13,000, about a little over $1,000 a month. They think it's going to stay the same. That probably would stay the same, although they have some vacancies. So I don't know, depending on however this heating system works, maybe that would be higher if you were full. Legal fees, it's insignificant. So they're saying you're going to be able to cut your total operating expense by $2,000 a year. Now, do you think that sounds realistic? Given that the real estate taxes are probably going to double, the insurance is probably going to go up by $4,000. Management fee might go up by $4,000. Repairs and maintenance probably stay roughly the same. So let's say, even best case scenario, the property taxes go up, let's say $5,000. Let's say the insurance goes up $3,000 or $8,000. Let's say the management fee goes up $1,000, but $2,000. Let's say there's $10,000 more expenses per year in here than what they are projecting. So your operating expenses are going to be $77,000. So let's just keep that in mind, okay? So this is really something to keep in mind here too. This is the percentage of the expenses to gross income. Expenses to gross income, I think is what they're saying there. Anyway, basically what this means is if you take and divide what percentage of this gross income are your expenses, is what that's figuring out. So right now their expenses are 63% of the gross income that they bring in, which is really high, actually. But they're projecting that your expenses will only be 45% if you can get up to their rents full. And 45% is more standard. That's kind of what you want to aim for. So you're basically keeping more of your money because you're spending less of it on expenses. Because here you're spending a much higher percentage of your income, your gross income, on just expenses. So obviously keep in mind here, guys, that there is no mortgage payment included in any of this. And there never is on these because everybody has a different mortgage payment. Everybody finances different. But that's why I like to do it and say, okay, well, $89,000 is going to be our mortgage expense. Even in their best case scenario with their lower expenses and their optimistic income, you're still falling short $22,000 a year. So you would have to basically shell out $2,000 a month to own this place, while you're also putting in capital money to fix up these units. So no bank is going to finance that. Even if you, well, I'm curious here. Even if you bought it for half price, it probably still wouldn't even pay for itself. Let's see. Okay, so it'd be 44,000. Okay, well now we're ending up with a little bit of money. So at their current operating income, this thing still couldn't float itself 100% financed at half the price. It'd still cost you $4,000 a year to own it. Does that sound like a deal to anybody? So they're really banking on this right here, that you could increase these rents like crazy. 50% increase, 40% increase in the income. Pretty optimistic. And why aren't they doing it now? And do you even want this manager then, if that's the kind of income that they're bringing in? Are they going to be able to even get it up to that rate? These are questions you need to keep in mind when you're trying to analyze these things. Okay, so yeah, always this is where the deal is. So if I were to, would I consider buying this thing for half price? Possibly. I don't necessarily like the area. There's not probably much more upside than this. If you could get it at half price, you could maximize the income like these projections. You could get about $25,000 a year. No, $35,000 a year income. That would be worth it. That would probably be worth it. So I'd maybe pay $600,000, but I don't know. I probably would just not even consider this property because are they going to discount it 40%? Probably not. They way overestimated. Now, what's interesting is that it's only $88,000 a unit, and that's not bad. That's not a bad price. The problem is just that it needs work. They don't have the rents where they need them to be to justify that price. They haven't accurately projected expenses at that price. So it looks better than it is. Okay, so here's their projections, and here's where they try to really sell you on a vision of you're going to make a bunch of money. All right, so this is the current income. So they're saying you would run it like it is for the first year, basically. And then in year 2, after your first year, you're going to work on getting all those rents up, and bam, you're going to increase everything to max capacity, which is possible. You know, if it only took a year to do, why didn't they start doing that a year ago? Is always my question, because then if at this gross income, it's worth 1.5 and you increase it 40%, then and they would have done that. They'd be selling this thing for 1.5 million, right? 1.4, 1.5. So they are so lazy that they just lost out on $400,000 of valuation. No, there's something else going on there, because people that doesn't make sense. So either the rents can't be sustained at that level, or there's something else going on that they're not telling us. And then the rest of these, they just increase at their rates that they told us right here. This is the growth rates of all these things per year. They're just using a 3% kind of consumer price index standard rate. And so then they just increase everything basically 3% all the way till year 10 to see that, oh, looky there, in 10 years, you're making $120,000 a year. Now, granted, this does not include a mortgage. Okay. So you always have to remember that. If this thing was financed 100%, that was what, $89,000? So maybe in year 4, with best case scenario, year 4, you would finally break even and stop subsidizing this thing. Okay, they got some charts that show, wow, look, you're going to make a bunch of money. Look at that. Boom, your income's going way up. Okay, so then they're going to try to convince us here with the cap rate. So currently it's a shit cap rate, 3.83. Nobody wants a property like that. That's garbage. But then in year 2, look at this, because you can maximize it. And then look, all the way in year 10, it's all the way up to 11.4%. And that's an amazing cap rate. So what a great investment. Well, yes, it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of capital infusion. It's going to take a lot of stress. It's going to be much more difficult. So I'd probably have these first couple years, you're not going to maximize it. This is year 2 is maybe going to be 5 or 6, maybe get up to 6.5 year 3, 7.5 year 4. These things take longer than what the agents think they take. So you want to protect yourself when you're looking for a deal. You don't want to get yourself into something, get tied into this thing, and then be borrowing against, taking out a line of credit against your house, home equity line of credit, or any of that kind of stuff. So, just keep that in mind. I want to make sure that you guys are being conservative in your estimations and your projections, that you're noticing the way that they are trying to manipulate you with the numbers. You have to be really aware and really diligent when you're doing these things. Financing is a whole nother topic that I'll make some videos on later. Or if you've got any questions about that, just leave me a comment. I'll read all the comments and I'll reply. Kind of let you know how I do it, what I do. Obviously, 100% financing is the best way to buy property. You put no money in and you let the property pay for all the debt. Okay. That's the goal that you're going for. You don't want to put a dime into this property. You want it to give you money. You don't want to give it money. That's how I look at it. All right. So it needs to pay for everything. All the repairs, all the financing, all the expenses, right from day one. Now, sometimes I'll make an exception because I realize maybe there's a nice property that's been owned by a long time, run by the same people who own it, and they just don't have the heart to raise the rents on the people and or things like that, to where if you take it over, immediately you can raise the rents to market rent and not have to put a lot of money into it. So you would overpay a little bit, but you would recoup all that in maybe a few months or a year. Um, but as a general rule, from day one, you want the thing to pay for itself. Okay. That's the standard. Those are the properties you want to entertain. And then from there, you can kind of, maybe if I institute this thing. So for example, I'm looking at another property and it's run by people who don't really use technology much. I know that if I institute the technology that I use, I could cut the management overhead by 50%. So I'm going to factor that in there because I'm going to do that, a couple months in. I'm going to start weeding that out, implement the information, get all the data from the property put in there. I'm going to be able to get rid of maybe a full-time manager or the management company that's doing certain things because the technology will do all those things now. And so I know that I can increase efficiency by implementing technology. So it's an easy thing to estimate. So then, so there's different areas like that you can figure. Those are usually on bigger properties. On a 12-plex like this, there's not going to be really any of that efficiency. Now, if you wanted to run the property yourself and you were going to self-manage, then you would make $9,500 a year managing it. So that is one way to help offset the financing if that's something that you want to do and if you think that that's not a burden for you. I look at it as management fee should be in there because I'm not going to run the property, so I want to build into it a fee. Now, sometimes when you look at smaller properties like this, like a mom and pop selling it, they won't put a management fee in these numbers, and you have to add one in because you want to compare all these properties apples to apples. So they won't put a management fee in because they run the property, and they might do the maintenance too. And so their maintenance and repairs cost is going to be lower than what it would be if you bought it and you had to hire those things out. So a lot of times mom and pop owners don't really think that their work, they think, is for this money. So that money would obviously be higher because they have fewer expenses in the maintenance and fewer expenses in the management. So they would be making, let's say, I don't know, $60,000. And they think, wow, look, we made $60,000. This is a good deal. But for you as an investor, you have to build those costs back in. Now, just something to keep in mind as you're looking through things like this. Cap rate, operating expense ratio, break-even ratio. I don't really know what they're calculating there, but okay. All right. Well, for me personally, this property would be a no-go, way overpriced. I wouldn't even consider it. I wouldn't even put an offer in. I just throw it to the side and move on to the next one. So, all right. Well, appreciate you. Make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoyed this kind of content. Comment, contact me. My email is on my YouTube. Email me if you have questions or you want help with anything. And subscribe so that you can keep getting my analysis and all the things that I'm excited to teach you guys about. All right. See ya.